Kevin Leavitt had always loved the water. Ever since he was a boy growing up near rivers and streams, there was something about the sound of waves lapping against the shore that calmed him. So when he and his wife Lisa moved to Willowmere Estates, a quiet neighborhood built around Lake Willowmere, it felt like coming home. The lake wasn't just beautiful, it was alive with possibilities for fishing, boating, and even lazy afternoons spent floating on the surface. For Kevin, it became more than a place. It was a part of who he was. Kevin's pride and joy was the Drifter, a modest but sturdy fishing boat that sat docked at the edge of the lake. It wasn't fancy, not like some of the sleek yachts owned by wealthier residents, but it suited him perfectly. Every weekend, Kevin would take the Drifter out onto the water, often accompanied by Lisa or one of his friends from the Willowmere Fishing Club. The club itself was small, made up of neighbors who shared Kevin's passion for the outdoors. They'd meet regularly to swap stories, share tips, and organize events like community cleanups and charity fishing tournaments. To Kevin, the club wasn't just about hobbies, it was family. But lately, things in Willowmere Estates had started to change. Not long ago, Alan Whitaker had been elected president of the Homeowners Association, HOA, and he brought with him a strict set of rules designed to maintain property values. Alan was a tall man with sharp features and an air of superiority. He wore expensive suits and drove a shiny black SUV, and he seemed to view the HOA as his personal kingdom. Under his leadership, the association began cracking down on everything from overgrown lawns to holiday decorations left up past January. While most residents grumbled quietly about the new regulations, few dared to challenge Alan directly. Then came the letter. One crisp autumn morning, Kevin found an envelope tucked into the mailbox outside his house. Inside was a formal notice from the HOA demanding that he move the Drifter from its current dock. According to the letter, the boat violated the community's aesthetic guidelines because it was visually unappealing and disrupted the uniform appearance of the waterfront. Kevin stared at the paper in disbelief. His boat, visually unappealing. Lisa noticed the look on his face as soon as he walked into the kitchen. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting down her coffee mug. "They want me to move the Drifter," Kevin said, waving the letter. "Apparently, it doesn't fit their precious aesthetic." Lisa frowned, leaning over to read the document herself. "That's ridiculous," she muttered. "It's not like your boat is falling apart or anything." "It's not about the condition of the boat," Kevin replied bitterly. "It's about control. Alan wants everyone to fall in line, no questions asked." Lisa sighed, knowing how stubborn her husband could be. "Maybe you should just move it," she suggested cautiously. "It's not worth fighting over." "Not worth fighting over?" Kevin repeated, incredulous. "This lake belongs to all of us, Lisa. If I give in now, what's next? Are they going to tell us we can't fish here either?" Lisa didn't have an answer. She understood why Kevin was upset, but she also worried about the consequences of defying the HOA. Fines could pile up quickly, and worse, it might strain their relationship with the neighbors. Still, she knew better than to try convincing Kevin once he'd made up his mind. Instead, she simply nodded and changed the subject. Word of the HOA's demand spread quickly through the neighborhood. When Kevin mentioned it during the next meeting of the fishing club, the reaction was unanimous outrage. Jack Miller, a burly man with a deep voice, slammed his fist on the table. "They can't do this," he growled. "We've been using this lake for years without any problems." Rachel Bennett, a soft-spoken woman with curly brown hair, nodded in agreement. "It's not fair. Your boat isn't hurting anyone, Kevin." Even Ben Carter, usually the quietest member of the group, chimed in. "If we let them push you around, they'll start targeting the rest of us too. We need to stand together." Encouraged by their support, Kevin decided to ignore the letter, for now. He figured the HOA wouldn't escalate the situation further, especially if the entire fishing club backed him. But Alan Whitaker wasn't the type to back down easily. A week later, another letter arrived, this time accompanied by a hefty fine. The message was clear: comply or face the consequences. As tensions between Kevin and the HOA grew, strange rumors began circulating among the residents. People claimed to hear odd noises coming from the lake at night, splashes, groans, and sometimes even faint whispers carried by the wind. Others reported seeing lights flickering beneath the surface, glowing softly before disappearing into the depths. Some dismissed these accounts as mere superstition, while others whispered about old legends tied to the lake. One evening, Kevin and Lisa were sitting on their porch watching the sunset when their neighbor Carol approached. Carol was a kind woman in her 60s who loved gardening and gossiping. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "You know," she said quietly, "there used to be stories about this lake. Back when my grandparents lived here, they used to talk about a spirit guarding the water. They said it punished anyone who disrespected it." Kevin raised an eyebrow. "A spirit? Really?" Carol shrugged. "I don't know if it's true, but it makes you think, doesn't it? All these weird things happening lately." Kevin chuckled nervously, though he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling settling in his chest. As much as he wanted to laugh off Carol's tale, the timing was hard to ignore. The disturbances had started shortly after his conflict with the HOA. Could there be some connection, or was it all just coincidence? Despite his doubts, Kevin found himself drawn to the lake that night. Unable to sleep, he wandered down to the dock where the drifter rested peacefully under the moonlight. The air was cool and still, yet there was an undeniable sense of unease lingering in the atmosphere. Standing at the edge of the water, Kevin gazed out across the dark expanse, half expecting to see something unusual. Nothing happened, until he muttered aloud, almost unconsciously, "If I could, I'd take this whole lake away from people like Alan." In that instant, the calm shattered. A sudden surge of water rose from the center of the lake, forming a massive wave that crashed down near the shore. Kevin stumbled backward, heart pounding, as spray soaked his clothes. When the chaos subsided, he noticed something strange embedded in the wet sand. A series of glowing symbols pulsing faintly with an otherworldly light. For a moment, Kevin stood frozen, unsure whether to run or investigate further. Eventually, curiosity got the better of him. He knelt down and traced the symbols with his fingers, marveling at their intricate design. Whatever they meant, one thing was certain: the lake held secrets far deeper than anyone realized. And perhaps, Kevin thought uneasily, those secrets weren't meant to stay hidden forever. The next morning, Kevin woke up with the glowing symbols still vivid in his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had happened the night before, even though he wasn't sure what it meant. Lisa noticed his distracted expression as he poured himself a cup of coffee. "You look like you didn't sleep at all," she said, leaning against the counter. "What's on your mind?" Kevin hesitated for a moment. Should he tell her about the wave and the strange symbols? It sounded so unbelievable, even to him. Instead, he shrugged. "Just thinking about the lake," he replied vaguely. "I went out there last night and, I don't know, something felt off." Lisa frowned. "Off how?" "I'm not sure," Kevin admitted. "Maybe it's just stress from everything with the HOA." She nodded sympathetically but didn't press further. Kevin appreciated her support, but he also knew she wouldn't understand if he tried to explain what he'd seen, or thought he'd seen. For now, he decided to keep it to himself. Later that day, Kevin visited the local library in search of answers. He spent hours poring over old books and documents about Lake Willowmere, hoping to find any mention of legends or myths tied to the area. Finally, buried in the corner of a dusty history book, he stumbled upon a short passage that caught his attention. Lake Willowmere has long been regarded as sacred by early settlers, who believed it was home to a guardian spirit. According to oral traditions, this spirit protected the lake and its surroundings, punishing those who exploited or disrespected its resources. Offerings were often made to appease the entity, ensuring harmony between humans and nature. Kevin sat back in his chair, heart racing. The description matched Carol's story almost perfectly, Could the glowing symbols and the mysterious wave be connected to this so-called guardian spirit? If so, why had it chosen now to reveal itself? And more importantly, why had it responded when Kevin expressed his frustration toward Alan Whitaker? Over the following days, Kevin became obsessed with unraveling the mystery. He sketched the symbols from memory onto scraps of paper, trying to decipher their meaning. At night, he returned to the lake, watching and waiting for signs of activity. Each visit left him more convinced that the spirit, if it existed, was somehow linked to his ongoing conflict with the HOA. Meanwhile, tensions in Willowmere Estates continued to escalate. Alan Whitaker, frustrated by Kevin's refusal to comply with the HOA's demands, issued a second fine and scheduled an emergency meeting to address the issue. News of the gathering spread quickly through the neighborhood, dividing residents into two camps: those who supported Kevin and those who sided with Alan. On the evening of the meeting, the community center buzzed with tension. Neighbors exchanged heated arguments while Alan stood at the front of the room, looking smugly confident. When Kevin arrived with Lisa and several members of the fishing club, they were met with a mix of cheers and glares. "Thank you all for coming," Alan began, addressing the crowd. His tone was polite but firm. "We're here tonight to discuss a serious matter regarding property standards. As many of you know, Kevin Leavitt has repeatedly ignored directives from the HOA concerning his boat. This is unacceptable behavior that undermines the integrity of our community." Before Alan could continue, Kevin stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. "This isn't about property standards," he shot back. "It's about control. You want everyone to live exactly the way you think they should, no matter what it costs them." Alan smirked. "Rules exist for a reason, Kevin. They ensure order and fairness. If we allow exceptions, where does it end? It ends with people being able to enjoy their homes without constant interference," Kevin retorted. "This lake belongs to all of us, not just you and your rules." The argument grew louder, drawing shouts of agreement and disapproval from the audience. Lisa tugged gently on Kevin's arm, urging him to calm down, but he barely noticed. The weight of weeks of frustration boiled over, fueling his words. Finally, Alan raised his hands to silence the room. "Enough," he said sharply. "If Mr. Leavitt refuses to cooperate, we'll have no choice but to take legal action. Let this serve as a warning to anyone else considering defiance." The meeting ended shortly afterward, leaving both sides seething. As Kevin and Lisa walked home, Lisa turned to him with concern. "You really shouldn't have said those things," she murmured. "Alan's not going to let this go." "He doesn't scare me," Kevin muttered, though deep down he wasn't so sure. Still, he refused to back down. If anything, Alan's threats only hardened his resolve. That night, unable to sleep, Kevin returned to the lake. The moon hung low in the sky, casting silver light across the water. As he approached the dock, he noticed faint ripples disturbing the surface, despite the absence of wind. A chill ran down his spine as he realized the lake seemed alive, almost aware of his presence. Standing at the edge of the shore, Kevin stared into the darkness. "If you're really there," he whispered, half hoping no one would answer. "What do you want from me?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the water began to shift. Small waves lapped at the shore, growing larger and more forceful. The glowing symbols reappeared, brighter this time, pulsating rhythmically like a heartbeat. Kevin took a cautious step backward, unsure whether to feel awe or fear. Suddenly, a voice echoed in his mind, not spoken aloud but clear nonetheless. "Your anger calls to me," it said. "You seek justice against those who disrespect the balance. Will you accept my power?" Kevin froze, heart pounding. Was this real? Or was exhaustion playing tricks on him? Before he could respond, the voice faded, leaving him alone with the restless lake. Over the next few days, strange events began unfolding around Willowmere Estates. Boats belonging to HOA supporters started sinking overnight, their hulls mysteriously breached. Docks crumbled without warning, sending expensive yachts crashing into the water. Fishermen reported catching nothing but empty nets, even in areas normally teeming with life. Panic spread through the community as residents struggled to make sense of the chaos. Despite no direct evidence linking him to the incidents, suspicion naturally fell on Kevin. After all, he'd been vocal about his disdain for the HOA, and the timing of the disturbances was hard to ignore. Some neighbors avoided him altogether while others confronted him outright. One afternoon, Rachel Bennett stopped by Kevin's house, visibly upset. "People are saying you cursed the lake," she blurted out. "They think you're behind everything that's happening." Kevin shook his head, exasperated. "I didn't curse anything, Rachel. I don't even know what's going on." "But you've been spending a lot of time at the lake," she pressed. "And you talked about taking it away from Alan. Are you sure you didn't, I don't know, say something you shouldn't have?" Kevin hesitated. He wanted to confide in Rachel, to tell her about the glowing symbols and the voice, but fear held him back. What if she thought he was crazy? Worse, what if she told someone else? In the end, he settled for a partial truth. "I've seen some weird stuff out there," he admitted. "But I swear I didn't cause any of this. Whatever's happening, it's bigger than me." Rachel studied him for a moment, then sighed. "I believe you, Kevin, but you need to be careful. If people start blaming you for real, it's going to get ugly." Her words weighed heavily on Kevin as the days passed. The fishing club, once united in their support, began to fracture under the strain of fear and uncertainty. Jack Miller accused Kevin of recklessness, arguing that his actions were putting the entire group at risk. Ben Carter, usually quiet, voiced concerns about attracting unwanted attention from authorities. Only Rachel remained steadfast, though. Even she urged caution. As the disturbances escalated, Kevin found himself torn between guilt and determination. On one hand, he couldn't deny that the strange occurrences aligned with his own desires, to stand up to Alan and protect the lake. On the other hand, the scale of destruction terrified him. Had he unwittingly unleashed something far beyond his control? One evening, as Kevin sat alone on his porch, Lisa joined him. She looked tired but resolute. "We need to figure out how to stop this," she said softly. "Whatever's happening, it's hurting innocent people." "I know," Kevin replied, running a hand through his hair. "But I don't even know where to start." Lisa placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Then we'll figure it out together. We always do." Her words gave Kevin a sliver of hope, but the road ahead seemed daunting. The lake, once a source of peace and joy, had become a battleground, not just between him and the HOA, but between forces he barely understood. And as the nights grew darker, the question lingered. Could Kevin regain control, or had the spirit of the lake already claimed him as its vessel? The days that followed were a blur of chaos and fear. Willowmere Estates, once a peaceful lakeside community, now felt like a place under siege. The disturbances at Lake Willowmere grew more intense with each passing night. Boats sank without explanation. Docks collapsed into the water, and even the fish seemed to vanish entirely from certain areas. Residents whispered nervously about curses and spirits, while others blamed Kevin outright for the strange events. Kevin tried to ignore the accusations, but it wasn't easy. Everywhere he went, people stared at him with suspicion. Some avoided him altogether, crossing the street to steer clear. Others confronted him directly, demanding answers he didn't have. Even Lisa, who had always been his greatest supporter, began to show signs of doubt. One evening, as they sat together in their living room, Lisa finally voiced her concerns. "Kevin," she said softly, "I know you didn't mean for this to happen, but do you think maybe you're involved somehow?" Kevin looked up sharply. "What are you saying, that I'm causing all this?" "No, not exactly," Lisa replied, choosing her words carefully. "But you've been spending so much time at the lake, and you mentioned seeing those symbols and hearing something. Someone out there. Maybe whatever's happening is tied to you, whether you realize it or not." Kevin sighed, rubbing his temples. He wanted to deny it, to tell Lisa she was wrong. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that she might be right. Ever since the night he'd muttered bitterly about taking the lake away from Alan, things had spiraled out of control. Could his anger have awakened something? Was he somehow connected to the spirit Rachel had mentioned? Before Kevin could respond, there was a knock at the door. It was Rachel Bennett. looking pale and shaken. "We need to talk," she said urgently, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "What's wrong?" Kevin asked, immediately on edge. "It's Alan," Rachel explained, lowering her voice. "He's organizing another meeting tomorrow. He says he has proof that you're behind everything, the sinking boats, the ruined docks, all of it." Kevin clenched his fists, frustration bubbling to the surface. "Proof? What kind of proof?" "I don't know," Rachel admitted. "But he's determined to make an example of you, Kevin. He's threatening to call the police if you don't move the drifter immediately." Lisa shot Kevin a worried glance. "This is getting serious," she said. "If Alan gets the authorities involved, we'll have no way to explain what's really going on." Kevin nodded grimly. He knew they were right. If the situation escalated further, it wouldn't just be his reputation on the line. It could tear apart the entire neighborhood. But how could he stop something he barely understood? After Rachel left, Kevin decided to return to the lake one last time. He needed answers, and he hoped the spirit would provide them. Armed with the sketches of the glowing symbols he'd drawn earlier, Kevin made his way to the dock under the cover of darkness. The air was thick with tension as he approached the water, and the moon cast long shadows across the surface. Standing at the edge of the shore, Kevin held up one of the sketches and spoke aloud. "I don't know if you can hear me," he began hesitantly, "but I need to understand what's happening. Are you doing this? And why?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly the water began to ripple, forming small waves that lapped gently at the shore. The glowing symbols reappeared, brighter than ever, pulsating in sync with the movement of the lake. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through Kevin's chest. The voice returned, echoing in his mind. "You called to me," it said. "Your anger gave me strength. Now I act on your behalf." Kevin's heart raced. "No," he said firmly. "I didn't ask for this. I just wanted Alan to leave us alone. I never meant for anyone to get hurt." "Intent matters little," the voice replied. "You sought justice. I deliver it." "That's not justice," Kevin shouted, his voice trembling with emotion. "People are scared, and innocent neighbors are suffering because of this. You need to stop." There was a pause, as though the spirit was considering his words. Then the voice spoke again, colder this time. "Balance must be restored. Those who disrespect the lake will face consequences." "But balance doesn't mean destruction," Kevin argued. "Please, there has to be another way." The hum grew louder and the water surged violently, nearly knocking Kevin off his feet. When it subsided, the voice returned, quieter but still commanding. "Very well. Prove your worth. Show me you value. Harmony over vengeance." With that, the glowing symbols faded, and the lake fell silent once more. Kevin stood there, breathless and confused. What did the spirit mean by proving his worth, and how could he possibly restore balance without making things worse? Over the next few days, Kevin worked tirelessly to find a solution. He scoured books and online forums for information about guardian spirits and ancient rituals, hoping to uncover a way to appease the entity. Meanwhile, tensions in Willowmere Estates reached a breaking point. Alan Whitaker, emboldened by rumors of evidence against Kevin, announced that he would personally remove the drifter from the dock if necessary. His declaration sparked outrage among the fishing club members, who vowed to protect Kevin at any cost. Rachel, however, remained skeptical. "Kevin, this isn't just about your boat anymore," she warned during one heated discussion. "Whatever force you've unleashed is dangerous. We need to focus on stopping it before it destroys everything." "I know," Kevin replied, his voice heavy with guilt. "And I'm trying, but I don't even know where to start." Rachel hesitated, then pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket. "I found this in an old book at the library," she said, handing it to him. "It's a ritual used to communicate with nature spirits. Maybe it'll help." Kevin unfolded the paper and scanned its contents. The instructions were simple enough. Gather specific items, arrange them in a circle near the water, and recite a chant asking for peace and understanding. It sounded almost too easy, but Kevin was desperate. That night he gathered the required materials, a smooth stone, a handful of dried herbs, and a vial of fresh lake water, and headed back to the shore. Under the light of the full moon, Kevin arranged the items in a small circle and knelt beside them. Taking a deep breath, he began reciting the chant Rachel had provided. At first, nothing happened. Just as Kevin started to doubt the ritual's effectiveness, the water began to glow faintly, and the same symbols he'd seen before appeared in the sand. This time, the voice that spoke was softer, less threatening. "You seek peace," it said. "Prove your sincerity." "I am sincere," Kevin replied earnestly. "I want to fix what's been broken. Please tell me what I need to do." The spirit's response came in the form of images flashing in Kevin's mind. Offerings placed in the water, sacrifices made to honor the lake, and acts of kindness shared among neighbors. It became clear that the spirit valued respect and unity above all else. When the vision ended, the lake grew calm once more. Exhausted but hopeful, Kevin returned home, determined to put the spirit's guidance into action. Over the following days, he rallied the fishing club to organize a massive cleanup effort around the lake. Together, they repaired damaged docks, removed debris from the water, and planted native vegetation along the shoreline. Neighbors who had once shunned Kevin joined in, inspired by the sense of purpose the project brought to the community. Even Lisa noticed a change in Kevin's demeanor. "You seem lighter," she observed one evening as they watched the sunset over the lake. "Like a weight's been lifted." "I think it has," Kevin admitted with a small smile. "I don't know if the spirit is satisfied yet, but at least we're doing something positive." Still, Kevin knew the real test was yet to come. Alan Whitaker had set a date for his confrontation with Kevin, and the outcome remained uncertain. As the day approached, Kevin prepared himself for whatever lay ahead, hoping that his efforts to restore balance would be enough to calm both the spirit and the storm brewing within Willowmere Estates. The morning of Alan Whitaker's confrontation with Kevin arrived with an eerie stillness. The air felt heavy, as though the entire neighborhood was holding its breath. Residents gathered in small clusters, whispering nervously about what might happen next. Some had come to support Kevin, while others sided with Alan, convinced that his strict leadership was necessary to restore order. Kevin woke early, his stomach churning with anxiety. He hadn't slept much the night before, plagued by dreams of glowing symbols and restless waves. Lisa tried to reassure him over breakfast, but her own worry was evident in the tightness of her smile. "Whatever happens today," she said softly, "we'll face it together." "I hope so," Kevin replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't know if together is enough this time." By mid-morning, the crowd had gathered at the edge of Lake Willowmere. Alan stood near the center, flanked by a few loyal supporters. His expression was smug, confident that he held all the cards. Beside him was a tow truck ready to haul the drifter away if Kevin refused to comply. As Kevin approached, accompanied by Lisa and members of the fishing club, the tension in the air became almost unbearable. "Good morning, Kevin," Alan said loudly, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "I trust you've reconsidered my earlier requests." Kevin took a deep breath, forcing himself to remain calm. "Alan, I'm not moving my boat. This lake belongs to everyone here, not just you or your HOA." Alan raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "Ah, yes, the lake belongs to everyone's argument. How quaint. Unfortunately for you, rules are rules. Unless you want me to involve the authorities, I suggest you cooperate." Before Kevin could respond, Rachel stepped forward. "What authorities?" she demanded. "You have no proof that Kevin caused any of the disturbances. All you've done is make wild accusations based on fear and speculation." Alan sneered. "Fear? Speculation? Tell that to the owners of the 5 boats that sank last week, or the families whose docks were destroyed. Coincidence? Hardly." The murmurs among the crowd grew louder, some agreeing with Alan, others siding with Rachel. Kevin glanced around, feeling the weight of their stares. For a moment he considered backing down, but then he remembered the spirit's words. "Prove your worth." If he gave in now, it would only confirm Alan's belief that intimidation was the best way to rule. "No," Kevin said firmly, stepping closer to Alan. "I won't move my boat, and I won't let you bully us into submission. You've spent months trying to control this community, but you've forgotten one thing. The lake doesn't belong to you. It never did." Alan's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of anger. "Fine," he snapped. "If that's how you want to play it, I'll take matters into my own hands." With a wave of his hand, he signaled the tow truck driver to start the engine. As the truck rumbled toward the dock, something strange began to happen. The water of Lake Willowmere stirred violently, sending waves crashing against the shore. Neighbors gasped, stumbling backward as the ground beneath their feet trembled. A thick fog rolled in from nowhere, obscuring everything beyond a few feet. Panic spread through the crowd as people scrambled to retreat to safer ground. Lisa grabbed Kevin's arm. "We need to get out of here," she shouted over the roar of the wind and water. But Kevin hesitated, staring at the chaos unfolding before him. Deep down, he knew the spirit was reacting to Alan's actions and to his own defiance. Had he pushed things too far? Was this the price of standing up to the HOA? Through the swirling mist, Kevin saw Alan climbing into the tow truck, determined to carry out his plan despite the growing danger. Without thinking, Kevin broke free from Lisa's grasp and ran toward the vehicle, shouting, "Stop! Don't do this!" Alan ignored him, slamming the truck into gear and driving it onto the dock. The wooden planks groaned under the weight, already weakened by the relentless waves. Kevin reached the edge of the dock just as the structure collapsed, sending the tow truck plunging into the water. Alan barely managed to leap clear, landing hard on the shore. For a moment, silence fell over the scene. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the storm subsided. The fog lifted, revealing a stunned crowd staring at the wreckage. Alan lay sprawled on the ground, dazed and soaked, while the tow truck disappeared beneath the surface of the lake. Lisa rushed to Kevin's side, tears streaming down her face. "Are you okay?" she asked, pulling him into a tight hug. "I'm fine," Kevin replied, though his voice shook. "But I don't think we're done yet." Indeed, the events of the day only deepened the divide within Willowmere Estates. While some residents viewed the destruction of the tow truck as divine justice, others blamed Kevin outright, accusing him of orchestrating the disaster. Tensions simmered just below the surface, threatening to boil over at any moment. That evening, Kevin met with the fishing club in secret. They gathered in Jack Miller's garage, speaking in hushed tones about what to do next. "This can't go on," Jack said grimly. "Every time something happens, it makes us look guilty, even if we're not." "He's right," Ben Carter added. "We need to find a way to stop this before it ruins everything." Rachel nodded, turning to Kevin. "Do you think the spirit will listen to reason? Can you talk to it again?" Kevin hesitated, unsure of the answer. He had hoped the cleanup efforts and his earlier attempts to communicate with the spirit would be enough to calm it, but the events of the day proved otherwise. Whatever force he had awakened, it wasn't satisfied yet. "I'll try," Kevin said finally, "but I can't promise anything. If this keeps going, it might destroy more than just the lake. It could tear apart the whole community." The group fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Lisa spoke up. "Maybe there's another way. Instead of focusing on the spirit, maybe we should focus on Alan. If we can convince him to back off, maybe the spirit will follow suit." Kevin frowned. "How?" "Alan's not exactly the compromising type." "We appeal to his ego," Lisa explained. "Make him look like the hero for stepping down. Frame it as a gesture of goodwill, not weakness. It was a risky plan, but it might work." The next day, Kevin approached Alan at his house, bracing himself for another confrontation. To his surprise, Alan agreed to hear him out, though his expression remained guarded. "What do you want now?" Alan asked curtly, folding his arms across his chest. "I want to end this," Kevin replied. "Not because I'm giving up, but because I care about Willowmere Estates. We all do. And right now this fight is tearing us apart." Alan narrowed his eyes. "Go on." Kevin took a deep breath. Here's the deal. I'll move the drifter, but only temporarily. In exchange, you call off the fines and drop the legal threats. Let's put this behind us and focus on rebuilding the community." For a long moment, Alan said nothing. Then slowly a sly smile spread across his face. "And why should I agree to that?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Kevin said simply. "And because it'll show everyone that you're willing to compromise. You'll come out, looking like the bigger man." Alan chuckled, clearly enjoying the idea of being seen as magnanimous. "All right, Kevin. You've got yourself a deal. But if you or your friends cause any more trouble, don't expect me to be so understanding." With that, the agreement was made. Kevin returned to the fishing club with mixed feelings. On one hand, they had bought themselves some time. On the other, he couldn't shake the feeling that the spirit wouldn't be so easily appeased. That night, Kevin returned to the lake alone. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a pale glow over the water. Standing at the edge of the shore, he called out to the spirit once more. "I've done everything I can to fix this," he said quietly. "Please, let it end here." The lake remained still, its surface reflecting the stars above. For the first time in weeks, there was no sign of the glowing symbols or the restless waves. Whether the spirit had accepted Kevin's plea or simply chosen to wait, he couldn't say. But as he walked home, Kevin allowed himself a small measure of hope. The battle wasn't over, not completely, but for now, peace had returned to Willowmere Estates. Yet deep down, Kevin knew the lake's guardian was still watching, waiting to see if the fragile harmony would hold, or shatter once again. The days that followed Kevin's agreement with Alan were tense but quiet. Willowmere Estates seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief as the immediate threat of conflict subsided. The fishing club worked tirelessly to repair the damage caused by the recent disturbances, and neighbors who had once avoided Kevin began to acknowledge his efforts with cautious smiles. Still, an undercurrent of unease lingered beneath the surface. Everyone knew the peace was fragile, held together by a temporary truce rather than a lasting solution. Kevin couldn't shake the feeling that the spirit of the lake wasn't done with him, or with Willowmere Estates. Though the glowing symbols and violent waves had disappeared, there was something unsettling about the calm. It felt like the eye of a storm, a brief pause before chaos returned. Each night he found himself drawn back to the shore, staring out at the dark waters, half expecting the voice to return. But the lake remained silent, almost unnaturally so. Lisa noticed her husband's growing restlessness. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, she placed a gentle hand on his arm. "You're still worried, aren't you?" she asked softly. Kevin nodded. "I can't help it," he admitted. "This isn't over. I don't know what the spirit wants from me, but I don't think moving the drifter is enough." Lisa sighed, her expression thoughtful. "Maybe you need to give it something more meaningful, something personal." "What do you mean?" Kevin asked, turning to look at her. "I mean, maybe this spirit values sacrifice," Lisa explained. "Not just your time or effort, but something truly important to you. Something that shows how much you care about the lake." Her words struck a chord deep within Kevin. For years, the drifter had been his pride and joy, a symbol of freedom and connection to nature. Losing it would hurt, but perhaps that was exactly what the spirit needed to see. Perhaps letting go of something so precious would prove his sincerity. That night, Kevin made his decision. He gathered a few belongings, tools he'd used to repair the boat, photographs of happy moments spent on the water, and even small pieces of wood salvaged from the drifter's deck, and packed them into a waterproof box. As dawn broke the next morning, he rowed out onto the lake alone, leaving Lisa and the others behind. The water was eerily still, reflecting the pale light of the rising sun. Kevin paddled slowly, savoring every moment with the drifter. Memories flooded his mind. Lazy afternoons fishing with Lisa, laughter-filled outings with the fishing club, and quiet mornings spent watching the mist rise off the surface. Saying goodbye wouldn't be easy, but he knew it was necessary. When he reached the center of the lake, Kevin stopped rowing and opened the box. One by one, he scattered its contents into the water, speaking aloud as he did so. "I'm sorry for disturbing you," he said, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. "I never meant to cause harm. This lake means everything to me, and I promise to honor it from now on." As the final item sank beneath the surface, the water began to stir. Small ripples spread outward, growing larger and more forceful until they surrounded Kevin's boat. A faint glow appeared beneath the waves, pulsating rhythmically like a heartbeat. Then the voice returned, not angry or commanding this time, but calm and resonant. "Your sacrifice is accepted," it said. "Balance will be restored." Before Kevin could respond, the boat lurched violently as the water surged upward, pulling the drifter down into the depths. Instinctively, Kevin grabbed an oar and jumped into the lake, swimming furiously toward shore. The current was strong, dragging at his legs, but adrenaline drove him forward. When he finally collapsed onto the sand, gasping for breath, he turned back to see the last remnants of the drifter disappear beneath the surface. For a long moment, Kevin simply lay there, staring up at the sky. His heart ached with loss, but there was also a strange sense of peace. The lake had taken what it needed, and in return it offered a promise of harmony. Word of Kevin's act spread quickly through Willowmere Estates. Neighbors who had once doubted him now spoke of his bravery and selflessness. Even Alan Whitaker softened his stance, acknowledging that Kevin had gone above and beyond to protect the community. The HOA disbanded shortly afterward, replaced by a new system of governance focused on collaboration rather than control. Over time, life at Lake Willowmere returned to normal, or as close to normal as it could be. The disturbances ceased entirely, and the lake seemed to thrive once again, teeming with fish and wildlife. Residents took greater care to respect its beauty and power, organizing regular cleanups and educational programs about conservation. Kevin, too, found a new rhythm in his life without the drifter. Though he missed the boat dearly, he discovered joy in teaching others how to fish and care for the environment. The fishing club grew stronger than ever, united by shared experiences and a renewed commitment to preserving the lake. One evening, as Kevin and Lisa walked along the shore, Lisa slipped her hand into his. "Do you miss it?" she asked quietly. "All the time," Kevin admitted with a wistful smile. "But I don't regret what I did. This place, it's home. And sometimes protecting something you love means giving up part of yourself." Lisa squeezed his hand, her eyes shining with pride. "You did the right thing, Kevin. Not everyone would have been brave enough." As they stood there, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Kevin felt a profound sense of gratitude. The lake had tested him, pushed him to his limits, and ultimately transformed him. Though he would always carry the memory of the drifter, he knew its sacrifice had ensured a brighter future for everyone. And deep beneath the surface of Lake Willowmere, the guardian spirit watched silently, content in the knowledge that balance had been restored for now.